Hello and welcome to the third and the Don Football Show. I am Joe. With me is Cecil, as always, here to recap Week 14 of the NFL season, preview Week 15 of the NFL season. Cecil, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm wearing some dark clothing. You may notice a Bengal branding because after this week, I don't know, and I've seen a couple things. I've seen the AFC act like complete garbage. I've seen Screen God Jake Browning lead the Bengals to two straight victories. So I don't know. Are they going to make the playoffs, and are they going to make some noise? I don't know, but it's my homage to the dark horse, the Screen God Jake Browning. So. I'm good though. I didn't make it in our fantasy league, but other than that, I'm kicking. I'm all in on the Jake Browning check down train.
It's a fun ride. I mean, I didn't think we'd be at this point, to be honest, but we're here. We're here. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. We're going to get to recapping that game in a little bit here. Let's start off with the game. I don't have too much to say about Cease. On Thursday Night Football, we had the Patriots and the Steelers. It was an offensive explosion for these two teams with a 21-18 final score. Bailey Zappi and Ezekiel Elliott provide some offensive output for the Patriots, and Mitch Trubisky is not very good for the Steelers. Their playoff hopes are kind of in doubt now based on the quarterback play in that offense.
No, absolutely. I think Mitch Trubisky is going to have to step up his game. If the Steelers have a prayer right now because they're hanging on for dear life for a wild card spot. They play teams like the Bengals still in their regular season one more time, which some of these games are going to be deciders of who actually gets in these playoffs or not because it's a completely open ended conference right now. When it comes to the Patriots, I mean, you and I have talked about it. I mean, I think Bailey Zappi should have been starting probably you know, 4 or 5 games ago at this point. I think Bailey Zappi finally got some time to actually prepare as a starter and do things, and it opened up the offense a little bit. I'm not saying Bailey Zappi is some great person in this league, but I mean he had more potential, and he showed it last year. We saw it. There were games where he upset some people, and he threw for some yards. Like I saw, I bet on the over in this game for his yardage because it was at like 150 yards, and I'm just like, that's just insane. So he proved him wrong. He showed that he can help run an offense. Ezekiel Elliott had a lot of screen passes that he was able to take for some good chunks of yardage as well, including a touchdown, pass. But ultimately, it's I think this Patriots team has more talent on it, and the problem is they haven't been maximizing that talent. And ultimately, that's a head coach, and that's a coaching problem, and that's one of the most damning facts of why maybe it's time for Belichick to go. Is that they have players. Bailey Zappi can do better than he was doing all year, and he was doing better than Mac Jones. He did better in that one game than Mac Jones has done all year. So that's telling me that I don't think they're evaluating talent or putting the right guys in the right places. And that's going to be killer for you if you're a coach, because really that's kind of your whole job. The GM, the NFL drafts the players. Your job is to develop and put the best lineup out there on Sundays. And they've shown that they cannot necessarily do that week in and week out.
Major reason why that Chris Long, of all people, is reporting that Bill Belichick is out as Patriots coach at the end of the year. Something that's been rumored to be happening for a while now. I'm with you. I think the Patriots do have more talent than what they're doing right now on their roster. The defense has been really good. The offense, they need more playmakers, and they need to put more emphasis on finding those playmakers. I think Jimmy Johnson said it best. You can find offensive linemen in the middle rounds. They can do their jobs pretty well, especially when you have an offense where the ball gets out of your hand pretty quickly. You can't find playmakers if you're not drafting them in the first round. It's very hard to do. It's harder to do. They need to take that page out of Jimmy Johnson's book and figure that out. But they get the win. It makes them farther away from getting the number one overall pick. So possibly being the second pick in the draft. Maybe it's, Drake May. Maybe it's Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll have to wait and see what that all entails for the future there. On Sunday, we had the Bengals beating the Colts 34-14. Cecil, you've already pretty much recapped the whole game with your one sentence earlier. Jake Browning is the screen god. Threw so many screen passes, it was ridiculous. You think the Colts would be able to stop it. They just couldn't. Chase Brown takes one all the way to the end zone. I think it was like 50-something yards. It's crazy that they were able to get this win in that fashion. They'd have won two straight. They've beaten two teams with over 500 records. Jake Browning has looked very good in those games. it's also just important to note that the limitations are there, and if a team decides to stop screenplays here, they maybe don't win this game even though they won it by 20. I've never seen anything like it in my whole time watching in the NFL. That many screens and that many of them working.
It's unreal. I don't know what Zach Taylor and company is doing over there on offense. Somehow it's working, and I I don't want to give him like a super ton amount of credit. I mean, he's doing a lot. They had 2 wins over, like you said, above 500 teams. Both teams that were in wildcard positions when they played, and we'll see how that works out at the end of the season. But I mean, ultimately, it's also this. I don't understand what defenses are doing here. I mean, the Steelers kind of figured it out early. They just didn't let anything underneath. They tried to make Jake Browning beat him deep, and he didn't, and they won the game. These other teams, for some reason, are just kind of not doing that and not focusing on it. But Bizarro Burrow, as I like to call him, Screen God, whatever you want to have out there. I mean, he's taken advantage of it, and how much is that success going to continue? I don't know how much longer NFL defensive coordinator is not going to be able to stop screen passes in the NFL. These are the conundrums I ask. But Bengals got a shot at a wild card right now. I didn't think I'd say that 3 weeks ago. And I've been in the boat where I'm like, it's probably best not to win because it's not going to really help your draft position. But damn it, if we're gonna make the playoffs, let's just make the playoffs then. Let's just do it. Because I was talking more like a team being 500, a team that's just really not going to be that good. You play like a season that's kind of middling and gets you nowhere. I mean, if you can get to the playoffs, and that's the other thing, it's not just a normal playoff year to me. As we'll get to some of the other games this week and kind of what I watched throughout all this week of the NFL, is almost every team seems to suck in some way. Or if they don't suck, they're wildly inconsistent week to week. And that kind of inconsistency can mean anything come playoff time if teams still are playing like that week to week. You could have a 6 seed, you could have a 7 seed go into the Super Bowl. It's just that simple. I mean, if a team starts out slow or plays erratic like they have, teams aren't putting together to consistent drives. They aren't putting together offensive points. And there are games where turnovers just become an absolutely crippling mess for teams. All those things can play into the Bengals' favor because the other big thing is that they do make the playoffs, they will be playing for nothing, really. The reality is there is zero expectation for this team. Every win they have is there's not really an expectation to it. It's kind of like I watch Bengals games now, and I hope they win. And I do evaluation to see how players are doing, especially younger ones that are going to be on the team in the future. But I mean, when bad plays happen, they upset me in the moment a little bit, but nothing compared to what it was before. When you're talking about wins and losses, Super Bowl windows and things like that, it's kind of just it's just a whatever year kind of. So it's fun watching it. It's fun to see the ride. The Bengals making the playoffs. I mean, depending on the matchup and not more importantly, not even just the matchup, but the team on the other side that decides to wake up that day. I mean, there's a shot always. I'm never gonna say anything's out of reach after the last 2 games because these 2 teams were playoff teams, or were supposed to be anyway this far in the season. And the Bengals, they beat the Jaguars just barely, but they just demolished the Colts. And the Colts are in the outside looking in, and rightfully so. They should have won this game. They should have really. I mean, they let an 80-yard screenplay. It just stupidness was happening all over for the Colts. The Bengals didn't let them get anything going on the ground. Zach Moss was a non-factor. So, I mean, I'm not going to anoint the Bengals with a playoff victory, but I'm just saying it's a wild-ass year where really anything can happen. And if that's true, let's just cheer for a team with a backup quarterback, just see how far they can go just for the hell of it.
At a certain point, if they were going to lose the last 2 games, they'd be in the top 10 pick. That's a different position. Now that they've won those games, just go start winning, play with house money, have some fun. It's been a crazy year, specifically in the AFC. But overall, I'd say this has probably been the worst NFL season based on product on the field in a long time. Obviously, we've had some bad officiated games that have played into that. We've also had, I think, 16 or 17 teams now have to go to their backup quarterback, and 10 to 12 of them for the season, like for long-term injuries and everything. The 4 teams we've talked about so far, Patriots, Steelers, Colts, Bengals, all on backup quarterbacks right now. Not saying all the quarterbacks they've had are the greatest, but that also plays into the factor of bad products. So why not go to the Super Bowl maybe this year? Win a couple games in the playoffs, go knock off some of your rivals, have some fun doing it. And Jake Browning has done good. I think he's earned himself some money this offseason, the way he's played. Yes, there's been a lot of screen passes this past week, but against the Jaguars, he threw it more downfield. We'll see if he can keep it up. I mean, they're tailoring the offense to what he can do. You just have to wonder now, Cease, as Bengals fans, what if they would have just benched Joe Burrow for the first couple weeks of the season and played Jake Browning? If they knew what they had, maybe they would have done that. Because now I'm sitting here thinking the first couple games were kind of a wash. And what if they change things up? So that's the only thing I have to say about that. Next game up, Buccaneers beat the Falcons 29-25. A couple of late lead changes in this one. Now, for me personally, fantasy-wise, Mike Evans being shut down was terrible, but everyone else for the Buccaneers pretty much stepped up. They had Cade Otton catching an 11-yard touchdown pass with 31 seconds left to give them the win, 29-25. This is on the road. They get the win. They end up taking the lead in the NFC South. Desmond Ridder throws for a lot of yards, has an interception. Not necessarily their fault they lost, but we know what the Falcons' limitations are, and I think we know the Bucs have a little bit of a higher ceiling this year in terms of how they've been playing and what they can do with this offense.
It's true. But I'll give the Falcons this consolation prize. They used their weapons. I don't know what happened out there. Kyle Pitts exists again. Drake London had like 190 yards or 170 yards, and then he got some rushing yards on top of it. I'm sitting there in awe, one, because my fantasy team benches looks like all-stars because of shit like this. But two, like, where the hell has this been? Like seriously, though. I'm not asking for Drake London to get over 150 yards or even 100 yards every game, but we went from like 30 yards a game to 170, like for no real reason, no real offensive change. Just they decided they were going to throw the ball downfield for once. Bijan was getting, reps at running back too. This is the kind of Falcons team that could be something of a product that you could see on the field being successful. Now, quarterback is always going to be kind of a question as long as Desmond Ridder is there, unless he takes significant steps forward the rest of this season. But at least this team has a shot at winning things. I'll give them that. The defensive secondary has been aggressive at times this season. They can take advantage. Tampa Bay had a turnover for a touchdown. That's huge. It's hard to win a game when it's a close divisional game like that, and the other team takes one in the house defensively. That kind of turnover can really be huge in any game, much less one like this. So Falcons fought hard. I'll give them that. If this is the team that we see the rest of the way down the stretch, I'll have a little bit more confidence in what the Falcons are building as a team. We'll see there. We talked about too. The Bucs are, I wouldn't say underrated because they're not really good, but I think they didn't get the respect or the credibility they probably should have going in this terrible NFC South race. They're in the driver's seat. Baker Mayfield is, again, still has turnovers, still does some stupid things at times. But, when you're looking at the competition in the NFC South, you've got guys. Bryce Young has not figured it out. They fired their coach. They're in disarray. Desmond Ridder is not a good NFL quarterback as of, sightseeing a year and a half in. And then, the Saints' Derek Carr is like, I don't know what the hell happened to the man, but he just looks completely regressed in a way that doesn't even seem possible, considering the guy that 5 years ago we saw out there. Especially, he's not at an advanced age. It just really is kind of weird. Baker might be the best quarterback in the division. That's not much saying much, but you have the best quarterback in the division. You're going to have a shot to win no matter how bad the division is. So Bucs take a lead here. Still some games left. It's going to come down the wire, probably NFC South, and probably won't amount to much come playoff time. But just see what happens out there. They're gonna fight like crazy and probably get killed by the Eagles or Cowboys.
Yeah, probably that's going to be the end result. But I do think this Buccaneers team might be even better than last year's team that finished under 500 and went to the playoffs with Tom Brady, which is crazy to say. They could next 4 games: Packers, Jaguars, Saints, Panthers. All those teams have had their ups and downs this year. Even the Jaguars are the best team on that list, and they've had a couple game skid over the last couple of weeks against the Bengals and Browns with some backup quarterbacks. So never know what could happen. Buccaneers could be a team that make the playoffs out of the NFC South. And you're right. I think, you know what? I'll save that for when we talk about them specifically. But I do think the Buccaneers might be are the not like most surprising team, but have met expectations of what they maybe thought they would be. 6-7 right now, looking for pretty good in this NFC South. The Bears beat the Lions 28-13. This is a new Bears team. Even the last month or so, they've kind of turned things on. They have 5 wins now on the season. Justin Fields was able to do stuff with his arm and his legs in this one. Their defense has stepped up. Montez Sweat has been a menace on the defensive line for the Bears. That's helped out. And the Lions have kind of shown that their defense can't be trusted. That's something to watch out for in the playoffs. And I think it separates them from the top 3 teams in the NFC, something we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, Cease.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it with the Lions, and we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks, the Lions pretty much since the first Chicago game, we kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt because it was a close game that usually, Detroit in the past has let slip through their fingers. But since that point, I mean, they got dominated on Thanksgiving. They had another, kind of okay game the week after, and then they lose to the Bears here. Um, it's just not looking good. It's not. I think there's some weird questions when it comes to, and we see this a lot because we're in fantasy. Which running back is on the damn field in what situation? 2 weeks in a row now, we've seen it where, we've got Dan Montgomery in on clear passing situations or 2-minute drills. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs running the ball on 4th and 1 and getting absolutely killed in the backfield. Um, I don't get it. I don't understand necessarily personnel wise on offense what's happening. Jared Goff seems to you just never know what's going to happen with the man. For someone who needs to be the leader of this team, there's just weeks where you're just like, I literally don't think this guy. He shows like zero poise. Like I don't know what if it like. It just depends on how he wakes up on Sunday morning. What's going to happen? Um, but it's scary to have a quarterback that shows he has all the talent to be a good quarterback in the NFL. That's why he was drafted high, and we've seen it. We saw it with the Rams and Sean McVay for that 1 year. We've even seen it with the Lions. It's like every other game you can see, or even within a game, and we've talked about this too. Jared Goff can make every throw in the NFL. He really can. But sometimes he then, on the next play even, will make the most stupid decision possible. Or his pocket presence just suddenly collapses upon itself as soon as there's pressure. The guy does not move at all, and he should be a little more athletic than he shows when he's in the pocket in Detroit. I mean, that guy gives up on plays like no one I've ever seen in my life. Besides maybe Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are the only other people that give up on plays like that. And that was usually because, A, the NFL was different because it was 10, 15 years ago. And they weren't, they were pocket passers in the traditional sense with very limited mobility. But Jared Goff isn't necessarily like those guys. He's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's a philosophy thing. But the defense, like you said, is giving up a lot of points. They cannot stop running backs, right? I mean, they can't stop the run game. The Bears, I mean, just run it down their throats for 2 games in a row, and they had no response. Their best run stuffing defensive tackle for the Lions was out in this game as well. I think that plays a factor. But, I mean, we're talking about a Bears team that most of the time looks wildly, pretty much bad when they're not playing the Lions at most times. The teams they've looked good against are basically like the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions. Those are kind of the teams you're like, wow, the Bears look good. And they didn't even look necessarily good in this. So Detroit, it's hard to pick them. It's hard to really say they're going to do anything. Thank God their first game will be in the dome there because if they were a wild card and they had to go somewhere cold, I'd go, I don't think it's going to go well for anybody. So it's going to go down to matchup for me at this point, who they get in the NFC wild card. And I mean, they're going to be probably the 3 seed. So they'll be playing whoever the 6 seed is, who I don't know what that calculation is right now, but I mean, let's say it's the Packers or somebody like that who already embarrassed them. I know the Packers lost, but I mean, there's a chance Detroit is in a first round exit. It's sad, especially considering what they built this year, but Jared Goff needs to show consistency for the rest of the season, and the defense needs to plug some holes, at least mitigate some losses, because this Lions team's not scoring at the rate it was earlier in the season.
Yeah, see, the Lions are in danger of a pretty big collapse of a season. I think there's a chance. Maybe they probably make the playoffs just because the NFC North is just not good outside of them. But they could lose like the last 4 games of their season. They got the Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys, and Vikings again. The Vikings will play them tough. The Vikings have offensive issues, so they'll probably win those games. But they haven't beat a good team since the opening week of the season when they beat the Chiefs. I mean, they have wins over the Falcons, Packers, Panthers, Bucks, Raiders, Chargers, Bears, Saints. That's not like the greatest thing ever. And I know this is like a year where a bunch of 500 teams are out there, so it's tough to get those wins. But they've lost to the Ravens, had a chance to get a win there. I it pains me to say this because I like Dan Campbell as a coach. I like a lot of the individual pieces. You know, Jameer Gibbs a big fan of, Brian Branch big fan of, Sam Laporta a big fan of. I just think this team might not have it in them to be very good in the playoffs or even to win more than 2 games the rest of the year. So, I mean, if you're, I guess they're 11 wins is still fine, but I think this team's in some pretty big danger. I don't know what that means, and again, it depends on the matchup there, but. And I'm probably going to be picking them to win this week against the Broncos, but it doesn't, like, there's no confidence there anymore. And that just feels so weird after how much we've talked them up. I think it very clearly is top 3 teams in the NFC, and then the Lions, and then a lot of other teams too.
Yeah, and I mean we'll talk about it. I mean, we talk about this Lions team, right? There are holes in the offseason. They didn't address them as well as we hoped when they had the ability and the salary to do so. We said two things were kind of the big thing. We were worried about if the defense was going to hold up on the back end, and then pretty much what we were most worried about was Jared Goff, and it's just that's pretty much what everyone's afraid of. Um, the Lions had a chance to maybe draft a quarterback in this class to help develop under Jared Goff. They got Malik Hooker, which is kind of dubious, especially with his age already. So, I mean, with the record they have now, it's not looking pretty for the Lions because there's going to be this kind of crossroads where, I mean, they're probably going to have to pay Jared Goff either way. And that's the sad reality, too, is they're going to be in quarterback hell. They basically kind of boxed themselves into, I hate to say it, as of right now, it's looking like the Kirk Cousins Vikings world where you've got a guy who's fine. He's okay. But, like, when you're talking playoffs, you're talking deep postseason runs, just doesn't have it as of right now. And yes, you can say Derek Goff made it to a Super Bowl with the Rams. That's fine. But let's be honest, in that Super Bowl, they didn't do shit. They got absolutely roused in one of the most boring Super Bowls ever. Patriots barely had an offense that year, but the Rams offense just did not run. And part of that is on Jared Goff. So we'll see what happens with the Lions. I hope that's not the case because that fan base has struggled for a long time. But Jared Goff just needs to step up. If Jared Goff can change our minds or get a playoff win this year, that'll buy a lot of credibility for this Lions team going forward. But right now, it's hard to trust that.
Yeah, it's just the same about after how much we've talked about them this year that this could be the end result. We'll see if they can turn things around. After talking about some of those franchises that have had some bad times, we just talked about Lions and Bears. Let's move on to the Browns and Jaguars and historic franchises that have not had much luck, but this year, pretty good teams. Browns win this one 31-27. Joe Flacco, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns. Looks like he still has it. I think he benefits from the Browns defense usually playing pretty good. Now, they had this game, it seemed like pretty much in control the whole way. The Jaguars did kind of make it close at the end here. Joe Flacco moves to, I believe, 10-2 in the Browns Stadium. That's a pretty good record. Obviously, owned the Browns when the Browns were bad and everything, and that's cool. But, man, blast from the past this week. We had, like, Randall Cobb scoring touchdowns, Joe Flacco throwing touchdowns. Jimmy Graham last week had a touchdown. I mean, it's been a weird year when this is all going on. Browns have a good chance to make the playoff seats. Jaguars are likely going to be the AFC South representative after a different injury for the Texans that went on this weekend. So it's 2 pretty good teams. Good one for the Browns to kind of hang on at home.
Yeah, I mean, Browns are going to make it there because, I mean, their quarterback has gone down and, honestly, they haven't really skipped that much of a beat because of it. And we talked about it before, Sean Watson really wasn't doing that much for him to begin with. So, compared to some other teams and the losses they've had at quarterback, it's really not that crazy of a drop off to what Joe Flacco is doing. If anything, Joe Flacco is doing a better job. The playoffs started, I guess, as soon as he got signed with the playoff with the Browns. It has been playoff Flacco, which means it's elite time. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, if he keeps playing like this, again, AFC is trash right now. I mean, keeps throwing for yards, and that defense keeps biting down, giving them field advantage, things like that. Is it really that crazy to think they beat some of these other teams that we were going to talk about in the AFC? I don't know. I mean, this might be the ultimate year to just go. You don't put any names on any of the stat sheets. I don't want names. Just give me yards, what people are doing statistically, week in and week out against a team with and their statistics. And right now, the Browns are playing better than other teams. With Joe Flacco, they weren't earlier in the season. The offense has been wildly inconsistent, but Joe Flacco has been able to kind of right the ship enough to get them in a position to continue to win games. And again, it's playoff picture. I mean, depending on the matchup or depending on who decides to wake up that morning. I mean, defense carries, and Joe Flacco's been there in the playoffs. You give him that. And he's played well in the playoffs consistently throughout his entire career. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's razor thin in the wild card race where if you get you bang out two losses in a row, you might just be out of contention.
Mhm.
It's that simple right now. But I mean, they get the win here, and again, the Jaguars team that some people keep saying is like the second best team in the AFC going into the season. Some people wanted to crown the Trevor Lawrence Jacksonville Jaguars as the team that could beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, that could be a reality, but at this point, the Chiefs, we'll get to that too, is also what does that mean to anyone at this point?
Mhm.
Um, Jaguars are wildly inconsistent. I think Trevor Lawrence probably shouldn't have played in this game. I think, they realized they were going up against the Texans. Hindsight, obviously, with some injuries there, it may not have mattered, but it wasn't smart to try to start Trevor Lawrence this quickly on a short week with a pretty decent ankle injury. He just because a guy can play, it's the NFL, air quotes here, doesn't mean you necessarily should, especially when you're franchise quarterback, where if some freak play happens back there, you're going to injure it worse, and he's going to be gone for the season. And next thing you know, your season is really over. So it's hard to say what we're going to see out of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to have to see how Trevor Lawrence continues to bounce back from that injury. But even outside of that, again, the team is inconsistent, wildly inconsistent. I think you can pretty much pick out almost every AFC team at this point and say they're wildly inconsistent and can't close out games. And that is a wild thought. And like you said, why the product on the field looks like it is suffering a great deal because in the AFC side right now, there is not an elite team in sight.
Nope, not at all. I will say, man, the Jaguars. I'm kind of over this Trevor Lawrence injury, man. He goes down, and I thought he was really seriously injured. Then we find out it's a high ankle sprain. Then there was the drama with the cart. Oh, why didn't they have a cart take him back when he waved off the cart? I don't know. I'm over it. So he needs to get ready and go play. He had 3 interceptions in this game, like you said. He's got to get a win next week now. I mean, hopefully he can play better through the injury, not making light of the injury. It's just I don't know why there's so much drama with this. I thought he was going to be out for a while, and he ends up playing in this game. Just kind of a weird situation there for Jacksonville. Let's move on. See, the Saints beat the Panthers 28-6. We know the Panthers are they've had a lot of their coaching staff fired. The guy calling the plays right now, his wife was on Twitter and saying, "Yeah, we're fired right now. So if you want to complain about the play calls, we don't care about this. Like this, we're getting all this crap for not being good at calling plays, but we were left with this roster. We're only around for the end of the season. We already know we're fired. So that's a mess. The Panthers are a mess. We know that. I don't have anything more to say about that. It sucks they don't have a first round pick. That's just ownership failure that we've talked about in past weeks. The Saints get the win 28-6. Wasn't a great performance by any means by them. I mean, we're still trying to find. They're the most disappointing team, most disappointing thing since the Star Wars sequel series, probably at this point. 6-7, with Derek Carr coming in, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas back, even though he's been hurt, Chris Olave, and the defense being solid. They're 6-7. They get the win against the Panthers. I think my flag football team can beat the Panthers right now. That's how dysfunctional they are. It's just not very good. So we talked about the Saints being disappointed all year, but they get the win and stay in the race. I just don't know what the answer is to fix this team. I think Dennis Allen is a very good head coach, and I don't know if you're going to get what you need out of Derek Carr or Jameis Winston, who are completely polar opposite quarterbacks, with Derek Carr being captain checkdown and Jameis being the more gunslinger type guy. There's just no right answer here.
Maybe just, I think we have an answer. There's one other quarterback on the roster, Joe.
Oh, Taysom Hill
Oh,
Wildcats on?
it's Taysom time, baby.
Yes, sir.
No, I would turn that off because that's just garbage. Maybe you rotate them every other play. You know, everybody gets a series. You can't do that with the NFL quarterback. That would be just impossible. But you know, crazier shit has happened. But you know, get a little of both every game. It's hard to really game plan when you have two quarterbacks who are completely different offensive tempos every drive. So you know, go for it if you're gonna probably miss the playoffs anyway. Um, yeah, the Panthers that somebody's wife starts tweeting back at Twitter trolls and shit is just the funniest thing every time. I mean, it never works. It just only goes horribly every time. Like it's just like this weird like enough's enough and they just explode onto Twitter and then they just get mocked even more and it's a weird look every time. Nobody wants that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants their mom coming in because you can't handle your own problems. You don't want it. It's funny because it's just so dysfunctional, and you can just tell that everybody is just so over it within the entire Panthers organization that even the spouses and family members of the staff are now just like, I don't care anymore. I'm sick of putting up with this and defending it, or even just not even having to defend it, just sitting there having to watch it happen and just have people just be like, I can't believe how stupid this is. They're like, yeah, it's stupid. You know, if there's, you know, you're in a customer service line, there's only one person working, yes, it's stupid. But the person who's working there also realizes it's stupid. And the Karen who sits in line and goes, you should really have more people working, you're an absolute genius. This is basically the NFL equivalent of like if you're a fan base just yelling at the random dude who's should not even be a playoff caller in the NFL and yelling at him for what he's doing or trying to do. I don't know, man. You're kind of like an NFL Karen. Like it is what it is. Like I don't understand what Panthers people even care about at this point because their season's been over for 10 weeks basically. So like take it from me. Like I every win is fine. It's fun. You know, when you're that I guess it's different when you're that dysfunctional. But when I would root for it almost because I want a higher draft pick. It's a shitty situation because it's just like you it's just a pit of despair right now. The Carolina Panthers are an absolute pit. If you're a Carolina Panthers fan, I do feel bad for you, but you're just gonna have to ride it out. That's really the only answer at this point. The mistakes have been made. You can't undo it. The staff that's there, it's not really the coach's fault. The coaches didn't ask for this. They literally didn't ask for any of this to happen. You know, they didn't want Bryce Young as their quarterback. They said no, I don't want them, and the GM drafted anyway. So if you'd like to direct all your hate towards the GM, that's totally fine. That's his entire job, and he deserves to be criticized for the mistakes he has made roster building and trading up and mortgaging the future for a quarterback that you know everyone wasn't saying is the can't miss prospect that other people are, right? That's the other key thing here is that this isn't Andrew Luck or it's not even like Joe Burrow or you know there's a lot of number one quarterbacks. It's not Caleb Williams or Drake May this year. There were questions about Bryce Young's profile. They've shown themselves. All the question marks have kind of been answered in a negative light so far in his career. So poor Panthers fan, I feel bad for you. Saints, I mean, you beat. It's like you're just beating up on a team that has no faith. So that should almost be like a half win in the NFL. Like a win's a win, I guess, but you know you're not getting any brownie points here.
Yeah, not going to get too much credit for this one. They do stay at 6-7, which is tied for the NFC South lead. The Buccaneers have the tiebreaker as we sit right now. Let's keep it moving, Cease. We have the Jets beating the Texans 30-6. Now, I'm going to start with the Texans. This is not the reason they lost the game, but just impacts them in the future. CJ Stroud is in concussion protocol as we speak. Had to leave this game. Nico Collins gets hurt. This is obviously after Tank Dell got hurt last week. So they're a little bit banged up right now. We'll see how they do going into the future here. The Jets, though, found a spark. The spark was Zach Wilson. They just got to bench him every other week, and then he comes out with a great performance. This one was in the rain and everything, too. 301 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, it's too late for them to probably make a push at the playoffs. I mean, they're 5-8 right now, but I don't know. Like it's just a weird situation that they get the win here, and it doesn't mean anything. I guess you're just hoping that you can make a push for the playoffs and win some of these games. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, if I was a Jets fan, I'd be fucking pissed. I'm gonna be honest. Like, sure, we win this game and we beat the Texans, but like, what is that? Like, what just happened? You're sitting there after just a season of just pain, just absolute pain. Like, imagine watching. Like, and that's the sad thing in the NFL. Injuries are one of the biggest problems with the NFL product compared to other sports is there are massive amounts of injuries compared to every other of the other big three sports, right? Injuries happen in all of them, but in the NFL, it is on a different level every year, and it does change the whole postseason every year too because there's usually a team that we thought was going to be good that is just decimated by injuries that barely is hobbled together. So there's nothing you really do in the NFL. The NFL has tried to keep safety and practicing and all of that as much as possible. But the reality is, I mean, I guess you can change the turf or you can play less games. Probably get rid of the Thursday night game. That's not going to happen though. And outside of that, I mean, injuries are just going to keep piling up, and it sucks. But when you're a team like the Jets, where you get that injury to Aaron Rodgers, and then you just watch a team just crippled on offense and a defense that is elite. That's probably arguably the best defense in the NFL this year, and it could be ranked as a good defense, of the last 5 years even. They're that good. They've been that dominant week in and week out, and just to watch Zach Wilson just be in a field position, it feels like for weeks at a time. It's just what happened out there. Like it's just like it's great. We got the win. You can be happy about that, but I'd also just be like, we decided to score 30 points. Like we couldn't score 7 to save our lives. So yeah, if you're a Jets fan, it's like it's almost like rubbing salt in the wound. It's just like one of those things where you're just like, oh, you break up with someone, and then the thing you broke up with them about is the thing they then decided to change after the fact, and you're just like, what?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what it's like if you're a Jets fan. It's like your ex girlfriend that just decided she actually is going to take your advice and make all these life changes, and now it's just too little, too late, and you're just like, I'm just upset now. So hopefully it gets better. I feel bad for Fireman Ed, um, and you know what? It's the Jets' own fault for trying to rely on Aaron Rodgers and kind of giving in to Aaron Rodgers' demands. That's why you don't negotiate with Aaron Rodgers like that. So, we'll see what happens. I almost made a very poor joke, and I resisted, and that's the key when
Good.
it comes to podcasting.
Good call, Sean McDermott. That's what you got to do when you get
And
in this
so I almost
situation.
made that joke too, and you beat me to it.
There you go. You're right. It's as you said. There a lot of things come down to timing. It is like a person you dated, and then 2 years later they're the exact person that you thought they would be, or something like that, or would be the one for you, and just stinks they couldn't get that timing down because it's a second overall pick that we're talking about here. It's not a guy that was drafted late. It's not Jake Browning right now. If it was Jake Browning, be oh yeah, we found some dude. We know all this great, but he's had his chances, and then he shows up when it's already over. Like next year, they're going to go to Aaron Rodgers no matter what. Zach Wilson's going to sit behind him, and then his rookie contract's going to be up. So what do we do? What do we do after that? I think his time is up, and he could be a pretty good backup and provide a spark for some teams down the road. But in terms of starting, I think it's past the time unless he wants to win all 4 games and make the playoffs. Then maybe he has a case. But until we see that, I don't really believe it's going to happen. The Ravens beat the Rams in overtime. They win 37-31. The Rams go up. The Ravens have to come back in this one. They're able to do so behind Lamar Jackson, 316 yards and 3 touchdown passes. They win the game in overtime on a Tylan Wallace punt return walk-off touchdown that was pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me. The Ravens, 10-3 right now. They find ways to win games. That's been apparent all season long. The Rams are still this team that very mercurial. I can't say the word, but they go 1 week of being good, one week of being bad. They beat good teams, they lose to bad teams. They're all over the place. But Sean McVay is doing a good job with a roster that is not very good. I'm gonna be honest.
Right. I mean, the Rams are wildly inconsistent week in and week out. The Ravens get a win. That's great. Again, for a team that's the number one seed in the AFC, they should probably not pretty much feel like they're in a dogfight every week with whatever team rolls in. Because it really, again, doesn't seem to matter who the team is most of the time. It's going to be almost the same result for the Ravens week in, week out. Like having to pull out games and come back from behind when you're a number one seed week in and week out doesn't necessarily mean you're good at that point. It's like I mean, they're not frauds. I'm not going to throw that out there. That's stupid. They probably are the best team in the AFC right now because they actually get wins and their offense actually can score points. But at the same time, I mean, they let anybody hang out with them. If it's the fourth quarter, they're going to be in a game still. It's just it's a play style thing. It's they want to eat a lot of clock at times as well. That can be dangerous. You're rolling the dice. Sure, you win these games. You have talent but you don't always want to go in, especially into a playoff game, just being up by a possession. You just don't want to. You don't want to have that. You don't want a team that need a touchdown to beat you, because it just takes one drive, right? It just takes one drive, and your whole playoff hopes, your whole fan base's hopes for the season can be gone. And I mean, Ravens should be the team that makes it to the Super Bowl out of the AFC right now. If we're going to pick today, that's the team that should make it. They are the number one seed, so that's not any kind of, genius, insightful take, but they should get there. But the problem is, just like we saw with like the Peyton Manning Colts a couple times, um, if they play inconsistent and they let teams hang around with them, you can get upset in the playoffs pretty easily. And we see it every year. You can't let teams hang around, and they got to start putting people away and Harbaugh plays close games. I'll give him that. That's just how it ends up grinding out. So hopefully that doesn't bite him in the ass.
Only time will tell for the Ravens. They have been a team in history that has won some big games, but also lost ones they should not have lost. And we mentioned that on the podcast all throughout the season. So maybe that could be coming down the stretch here. Cease, let's go to the game that was the worst of all time. The Vikings win 3-0 against the Raiders. I'm going to take no time to talk about this because it doesn't not worth talking about other than saying it is the lowest scoring game in a dome in NFL history. 3-0.
Yeah, it's also one of the lowest scoring games ever, regardless of the dome. But that's a fun fact. Yeah, absolute utter garbage. The Pastronaut it's over. I'm sorry, man. I don't know what happened. But wow, that was hard to watch. I've never bet on an over or thinking about betting on an under that's 6 points. That should make the NFL sick. At least with like the Alabama LSU game, like national championship, everyone much maligned by most people. It's two great defenses. This was not two great defenses. This is just absolute incompetence everywhere you looked on the team. So that's what's going to happen when you have Vikings who aren't good and the Raiders who have an interim head coach, and they're just trying to scrape things together. So it all kind of came out in front of everybody, and that is a rough 4 o'clock game for people. If I was if I wasn't a Viking or Raiders fan, especially, and I got stuck somehow watching that game on my television, I don't have NFL Sunday ticket or something happened, that would be worse. Honestly, no football is better than that. Just straight up. At least that
Whoa.
it's better than that because I'll tell you what. That was worse because you might as well have literally been forced to sit in a chair for 4 hours to watch just someone who how to do the job of continually mess it up over and over in just the most frustrating kind of ways. That's what it is. And no, I'm not saying I'm necessarily an NFL caliber coach, but I think we could put something semblance of something on the field that could score. I think I could score 3 points in the NFL.
As a head coach.
As a head
I mean,
coach,
that's
I could put a staff together that could score 3 points.
okay. I thought you were saying as a player for real quick, and I was like, I don't know, see, so it'd take a lot.
No, that's a lot. But no, I think I could put together a staff that could get me 3 points in an NFL game with the current NFL talent pool.
Okay. All right. I do have one thing to add. I actually forgot. I would have talked about it, but Ivan Pace, the guy who went undrafted from Cincinnati, got drafted by or undrafted by the Vikings, having a very good season. He had a big game in this one too. Just goes to show you that he got judged because he was like 6 feet tall at 250 pounds, but he's been rushing the passer well. He has a game-winning interception in this game. That's really huge. I honestly, I didn't mind watching this as much, Cease, because it's almost like an unbelievable thing that they're that bad, and I kind of find it funny. It's like watching, and you don't, cover your ears, Cease, but Maction during the week. It's like you're not watching the best football, but that's not why we watch it. We watch it because it's fun and crazy things happen. I was cheering for a 0-0 tie. There have been 73 of those in the history of the NFL. I wanted a 0-0 tie, overtime and everything, and it just didn't happen. So
When was the last 0-0 tie, Joe?
I don't know, but
Before or after 1950?
I don't know, but I know the first one was 1920 between the something Tigers and the Dayton Triangles was the team name.
Let's go.
Go Triangles. All right, so let's go to the 49ers and Seahawks. The 49ers win this 28-16. The Seahawks get off to a pretty good start here, Cease, with Drew Lock at quarterback of all things. They're actually winning at the start of the game. The 49ers have to come back. They just trust their offense. Brock Purdy, he's earning every dollar he's making. He's giving this man a pay raise still on that rookie contract for Mr. Irrelevant. He should be in the MVP race. If you take out even all the throws that are behind the line of scrimmage, his yards per attempt are still very, very good. 368 yards, 2 touchdowns in this one. Threw some passes downfield to Deebo Samuel to get them the win. I think if Geno's healthy, maybe Seahawks can keep it within the spread. But the 49ers, ever since their bye week, regardless of the Geno thing, have covered every spread, I think, the whole way for the last 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it is now. So they're killing it right now. They should be the favorites to win the Super Bowl because no one else is playing at that level.
Yeah, I mean that's what we talk about elite NFL teams. That's what we see. We saw the Kansas City Chiefs probably 3-4 years ago, right? That they were elite, where they were covering 14-point spreads. They were throwing the ball all over. It didn't matter if a team even got up by 14 points in the first quarter. It just went whatever. The Chiefs are going to dominate this game. Still doesn't matter. Like, um, that's kind of what the 49ers feel like. It's like if they got down a game at this point with what they showed me, I'd be like, cool. I mean, what are the odds FanDuel's giving me right now? That's just the reality because they are covering everything. The only thing that did happen this week, though, Christian McCaffrey touchdown streak snapped for a lot of people out there. So for any of those bettors out there, I'm sorry. But at the same time, I don't think you lost that much money considering it was like minus 400 before the snap. So God bless you, basically. But yeah, if you're a Christian McCaffrey fantasy owner, getting a goal line touchdown stolen from you is even more frustrating. So 49ers are rolling. That's all there really is to say. We'll see what the Seahawks do. Again, they can still make the NFC. I think they're definitely better than anybody the NFC South throws out there. And I mean, they could beat the Lions. If they end up matched up with the Lions, I would be cautious to say the Lions are going to necessarily win that game.
I would be as well. I still think they're a pretty good team. I still think they could make the playoffs. Have to do some work in the last couple of weeks here to do it. But yeah, 49ers playing pretty well, and it's going to be hard to see a team beat them over the last couple weeks of the season. Let's get to the controversial game here, Steve. So we have the Bills beating the Chiefs 20-17, and I'll have a little bit of a rant here in a second, but let's just get down to the nitty-gritty. The Bills kick field goal, go up to 20-17. Chiefs get the ball, chance to go take the lead, and Kadarius Toney lines up offsides. He is in the neutral zone, a little bit past the neutral zone, to be honest. And he checks at the line of scrimmage, checks with the official on the sideline, puts his hand up. He doesn't look at the official to make sure that the official gave him the okay. And Chiefs fans are calling this the worst call in NFL history. There have been 11 offensive offsides calls this year, so it has been something they've been emphasizing. It has definitely not the worst call we've ever seen. We've seen plays, I think a couple of years ago, I forget what receiver it was, checked with the official to make sure he wasn't offsides. The official then flagged him for offsides after he checked and got the okay. And then it's not even to mention the Chiefs have benefited from some pretty good calls of their own. So even if you want to say it's a bad call, which it is not, let's not forget the Patriots scoring a touchdown against them and gets called off the board. I think in the 2018 AFC Championship game, if my math's right. I may be wrong about that year. And then last year, James Bradbury gets called for a defensive holding call that gives the Chiefs the win in the Super Bowl. So I I thought it was pretty downright awful for all the complaining that was happening. The Bills deserve the win. They're starting to turn things around here. Joe Brady's doing a good job at offensive coordinator. I also thought it was pretty classless by Patrick Mahomes, complaining the whole time and yelling. I mean, we've all complained about calls. You play sports, it happens. But going into the handshake with Josh Allen and saying, "Hey, that call was BS. The worst call I've ever seen in my life." Josh Allen's just trying to shake your freaking hand, dude. He's trying to tell him good game and move on. And go complain in the post game press conference. A little bit of my rant there, C's. Very unhappy with the Pat Mahomes, which is a guy I've never really had a problem with before. One, and two, just the officials called it. It's not something that's usually called, but it's been called 11 times this year. I mean, you guys are fine. You're 8-5. Just get over it. I mean, it's tough to say, but it wasn't this egregious call. It was a right call, and if you can be mad if they didn't call it before, but it's just that's how it is.
Yeah, we've seen phantom calls, bad ones, where what was it, a couple years ago, where basically there was that pass interference in the NFC Championship game that was clear to every human being on the earth. So much that they even changed it to be a challengeable ruling, basically. Um, we've seen the Kansas City Chiefs that got 5 downs in the AFC Championship game last year. You know, coming from being a Cincinnati Bengals fan and watching the Chiefs complain about officiating is just stupid to me. I'm just like, I mean, you guys have got so many calls through the years. Um, I get you're frustrated because of what happened and what the result of the play was, but I mean, we've seen phantom holding calls. We've seen, like if it was an illegal formation, would Chiefs fans be complaining? No, because they would go, they should have known better. Kadarius Toney should know better. You can, I mean, he one was not very far away from the offensive lineman in this formation. One, look at the ball. Like, just go to the right, look at the ball, and go, that's really weird. I'm like in front of everyone. Like, you're an NFL, you're a professional wide receiver in the NFL. That is your job. You have been in the league for 2, 3 years now. Why do you not know where to stand? And why are you like you don't even like you kind of half check like if you don't actually look at the official, then you didn't do anything. Anybody can wave their arm and just not look at anyone. Like that, like the ref isn't going to come over to you and go, "Hey, you're offsides." The ref's not going to let you snap the ball if you don't let them touch it and set it. Like that, they have to be impartial. I mean, you're the idiot who's lying off offsides. It's that simple. I feel the same way you do about all of this because I think it's annoying how angry they are. If it was any other play, they would have just it wouldn't have mattered. The reality is it happened on their best play, and that's why execution and not making mental mistakes is so huge in the NFL. That's what every coach will talk about is it's the mental mistakes. It's just stuff like that that drives them crazy because it is the thing that can completely change a game in an instant because of one thing that one of the 11 players does on your side of the field. It's a team sport. Everyone has a responsibility. Everyone has to be able to depend on each other. And the reality is here, they suffered. And they suffered because of it. And it sucks for some of the players on that team. You know, Pat Mahomes thought he had a touchdown and basically got wiped away by one of his teammates. And instead of, coming together as a team and going, we'll fight through this, or, he just decided that he was going to just start blaming anybody he could for it. It was everyone else's fault, but the Kansas City Chiefs' fault. The reality is, it's scary. You want to point blame, you can point blame at your own teammate, man. That's the reality. It's not a good look when you start pointing fingers at people. It looks bad. It looks bad on Pat Mahomes' entire brand as a quarterback because he came in the league. It was kind of like he was a project. Oh, it's so cool what he can do. He seems like a normal guy. And since that point, I mean, the Chiefs have just gotten more and more obnoxious. And I mean, Pat Mahomes has kind of taken the vacuum of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady as, the quarterback. He's on every commercial. He's on everything. And, to just see him just act like a psychopath on the sideline for something that his team screwed up. I get it's a moment. I get it's a big game. But one, you're still going to win the AFC West. I know you want to win this game. You continue to go on and on about it. Like, what are you going to do? Fight a ref? Like, you're just screaming at people. Like, you're the leader of this team. And when the leader of the team starts acting like that, like, that is not a good sign. It's a sign of frustration. It's a sign of the Kansas City Chiefs aren't the team they used to be, and he's frustrated by it. And it's a sign of something, a much bigger problem inside of their locker room right now. Pat Holmes needs to grow up and be a leader and learn how to lead through adversity on a team that hasn't experienced really any. They lost the AFC Championship game at Arrowhead and got upset by the Bengals. Is that really you lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots? In your first series starting, like the adversity the Kansas City Chiefs have faced as an organization since Pat Mahomes became the starting quarterback is next to literal none. So the idea that this call was one of kind of the very first things where you're kind of like, man, that's kind of sucks, and to see how the reaction to it was is not a good look. It speaks volumes about a lot of different things about what this Chiefs team means. Um, they're inconsistent. There's problems with this offense. I think Pat Mahomes is ultimately frustrated that his receivers continue to let him down, and that's an objective fact. They have the drop passes. They don't run the right routes. They don't come up in big times. Travis Kelsey's trying to do everything he can. The teams just key off on him. And it's frustrating. I can see why it's frustrating for him with all the talent he has and where they've been. But you can't do that. You can't. You're the guy who has to be the one who keeps their composure. And sure, if it was a bad call or something that was actually wrong, they did wrong, then maybe you say something in press conference, but you don't go around screaming at people. You shake Jake out, you shake Josh Allen's hand. You say, good game. I thought we'll see what happens next time, kind of deal. That's how you make it happen. He won. They won the game. They put together a much better game than the Chiefs did pretty much the whole time, because the Chiefs during this game did nothing for swaths of the game. I mean, the first half was rough looking. Second half, they came out and moved the ball a little better, but I mean, the Bills just ran all over them for most of the game. I mean, James Cook looked like he was unstoppable every time he touched the ball. Either he get it out of the backfield or he, get a carry. It looked like the Chiefs did not have a single answer for it. So, yeah, I'm done with it. Offensive offsides was called literally in the next game, in the Cowboys-Eagles game, it got called. So to act like it never gets called, it's been called, like you said, 11 times this year. It got called in the very next game. You didn't do your job right. Suck it up. There have been plenty of times where a game ends because somebody makes a penalty. It's your fault you made the penalty. It wasn't a phantom call. It literally, objectively, is the rule. It's like the Chiefs' right tackle who literally is not on the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped, and they just let it happen because why not? Because it's Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. So that I'm in the same boat. I could rant about it all day. We are not friends of the Kansas City Chiefs on this podcast, as everyone could probably have guessed. But, we try to keep it objective. But that kind of stuff is upsetting as someone who tries to watch and enjoy this game. To watch the team who every year is talked about like the greatest team ever, are going to win the Super Bowl every year, to then just act like a bunch of babies when you lose one game, when it doesn't, you're still going to make the playoffs. That wasn't the last game of the season. It wasn't even a game that really is going to affect your playoff chances. It really means nothing but seeding. So you're complaining that you don't get to play games in Arrowhead all playoffs? Man, that sucks. That's really hard for you compared to every other fan base, every other team out there that you have to go play somewhere else for the AFC Championship game. Please continue to cry.
Yeah, there's one thing, we're not Chiefs fans, but one thing that I like more than even being a Bengals fan, it's just football in general, being a fan of football. I think it's right to call out when teams have bad calls against them, whether it's our team or not. This was one that could have really ruined the game for the Bills, who did need the win. They called it right. Tony could have stopped and looked at the official, made sure it was okay where he was lining up. He didn't do it. I'm getting sick of Brittany Mahomes. Every time there's one game they lose, always the refs, always the refs, always the refs. And that's really cool for her husband to be that supportive, even though it's not really being supportive. It's just talking about the refs. I didn't like the Pat Mahomes after the game said it hurts Travis Kelsey's legacy. Like, dude, he caught the ball and flipped it back to a guy. He's been doing it forever. If he keeps on doing it, someone's going to go pick that sucker off and return it for a touchdown. It doesn't take away from his legacy whatsoever. He's going to finish as the best tight end of all time, possibly when it's all said and done. We pointed out bad calls that had happened against the Bengals. We pointed out bad calls that happened against the Patriots, a team I don't like either. I want to make sure this is like the sport of football is too great that I don't want to sit here and be like every week, oh, the officials suck, the officials suck. And the officials have been a problem this year, don't get me wrong, and something needs to be addressed. But every time, man, it just seems like it happens all the time. And even when it happens to Bengals, like Cecil and I will both, when Bengals fans complain about stuff, even like with all the weird tie-breaking scenarios last year, we were the ones saying like, yeah, it's kind of BS, but just take care of business. It wasn't our fault that the whole tie-breaking scenario stuff started. But that's where I'm at with it too. I feel like from a football sense, call the game as it should be, and don't always complain about the refs when you lose. It's not always the refs' fault. So Bills get the important win, and that's what's covered up by this storyline. They're 7-6 now, have a chance in this AFC East and a chance to be kind of find what we thought they would be by the end of the season, which they've gotten on the right track, and we'll see if they can keep that up. Now
right.
the last. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Because that rant got me fired up, but that's something I want to talk about too. The Bills are right back in this thing right now. They have a chance to make the playoffs, and if they make the playoffs, they're one of the more healthy teams out there right now, and they're a team that has a pretty good defense and has a quarterback who can make plays happen with his legs and has a big rocket arm. So if he cuts down on turnovers, which he's done over the last couple weeks, they can make it to a Super Bowl. They can beat any other team in the AFC. And I can say that with confidence. If Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over, there's a good chance they can be the victors in every game they play if they make the playoffs. That's a big if. Obviously he's turnover prone, but the reality is if he can limit that stuff, he's able to make plays as a playmaker that can help win them games. And I don't think I would be saying that 4 weeks ago. So I'll give them credit where it's due. So good for them. Good for that team. I don't know what the hell happened with Sean McDermott, why that speech ever happened. I'll say that too as my quick hit. That's just shocking. I don't know how you think up an entire speech and don't go, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? We're in America. But yeah, so good for the Bills. Hopefully they make the playoffs because honestly, I think the playoffs will be much more exciting with them in it compared to all these teams that have no quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the last of the Sunday evening game, Cease, before we get to the Sunday night game. The Broncos have won 6 of their last 7 now. They win 24-7. Good win for them, 7-6, looking like they could make the playoffs after that rough start. Their only loss in those 7 games was on the road to the Texans. Not a terrible loss, more understandable. Chargers score 7 points. Justin Herbert was healthy for a lot of the game. Then Easton Stick comes in because Justin Herbert gets hurt. He's now out for the season. Nothing more to say about the Chargers. They are done for the year with Easton Stick, a quarterback. Very nice guy from North Dakota State, but at the end of the day, they don't have what's going to be good enough to be a playoff team, and also Brandon Staley's going to be fired, and we all kind of saw that coming. He's a lame duck coach just as much as Ron Rivera is in Washington for albeit different reasons.
Yeah, R.I.P. Brandon Staley. Just Herbert's gone. That's all you really need to know about the Chargers this year. If you are a Keenan Allen owner or a Austin Eckler owner, I am sorry for you for your fantasy championships. Or if you were a Justin Herbert owner and somehow were able to weather the storm of some bad games there. I feel bad for you because that's, again, injuries suck in the NFL. But the Chargers weren't making anywhere this year anyway with or without Justin Herbert at this point. They just have no shot in most of the games they play down the stretch going forward. Broncos, they're putting wins together. Again, the AFC is so muddled that it's hard to really say if that's good or if they're playing good teams or bad teams. Even when they beat the Chiefs, it's Pat Mahomes is kind of sick and Chiefs are inconsistent anyway. So I don't know. I can't ever trust the Broncos in a playoff game right now because I can't trust this current style offense with Russell Wilson. But at this point, crazier things could happen. So the idea that the Broncos could be a team that makes it to the AFC Championship game sounds insane to me, but the reality is it doesn't really take that much of a leap in logic. Ball's just going to bounce their way a couple times in the right playoff game.
If you're an AFC team and you clinch a playoff spot, I am saran wrapping my quarterback for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm just putting him in a. I'm putting him in the locker room. You don't leave. You're not allowed to go get hurt. No car crashes. No nothing. You you sit there. You sit there for 2 or 3 weeks, and you just stay there because honestly, whoever might have the healthiest quarterback might win. It might end up being Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. It might be Tua, even though they haven't beaten a good team all season. That could be Tua leading in the AFC. One or two more quarterbacks goes down in the AFC, and it's a totally different ball game. It's weird to think that way, but with how many injuries we've seen, that's how it could be. I'm with you. The Broncos, if Russell Wilson's healthy and he's had a pretty good year for them after maybe a tumultuous start, they could find themselves in the AFC Championship game, which is crazy enough to say right now. All right, Sunday Night Football sees the Cowboys dog walk the Eagles 33-13. Dak 271 yards, 2 touchdowns. This Eagles team has had 2 really bad weeks in a row. They played the 2 best teams in the NFC overall in the last 2 weeks, and they ended up losing both and not looking good. The defense looks like it has some real issues, but the offense does too. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is 100%. Their wide receivers are dropping passes. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both are. And Cease, I'm ready to say it. I don't care. The Cowboys have got knocked for a long time. Cowboys are the second best team in the NFC. Eagles are done. Until they prove it, they lost to the 2 best teams. They had a chance to kind of prove things. And not only did they lose, they did not look good when they lost either.
Yeah, I'm willing to say that too. I think the Cowboys are now the second best team in the NFC. The only thing that sucks about that is the big elephant in the room is the 49ers, who is a team they have never been able to beat since pretty much the 90s. So that's kind of a key thing as well to watch down the stretch. But yeah, I mean, they beat the Eagles. The Eagles didn't have an offensive touchdown. It's that simple. We saw that happen. I mean, it sucks because you can see the potential of the Eagles' offense and defense. They are banged up. They played a hard schedule, la-di-da, but they're not winning games. And you could also, on the other end, say, they won a lot of close games because they weren't really that good. And now the toll of the NFL schedule has kind of finally shown that. Jalen Hurts, they're just not making any plays on offense. Like, they were just covered up. And, I mean, the offense would move probably about 20 yards and then they punt. Like, there was just no big plays in this one, which is a big thing with the Eagles offense with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They need to really feed. And kind of keep the tempo going. The running game just doesn't really exist. It's, DeAndre Swift gets the ball every once in a while, but it's really not about that. It's just more to keep teams honest and, to make sure that Jalen Hurts can also get some rushing touches too, because they have to account for a running back. So, I mean, Cowboys did everything you want in this game. They scored a lot of points. CeeDee Lamb shined. And, Dak looks great. Dak is really adapted to this new offense, the West Coast, and he looks way better because of it. And, yeah, I mean, right now, I'd say the Cowboys are the team that has the best chance of beating the 49ers. Are they? That's hard to really say. I don't – it's just impossible for me to really pick the Cowboys right now over the 49ers, considering how hyped we got on the Cowboys earlier in the year, and then they got killed by them. But I think it's definitely going to be a better game. It could be an interesting one for sure. And, if you got to play, that's the thing about the playoffs. You just take it one game at a time. If you just got to go, I commit myself and everything this organization has to winning this game, I mean, that can be a very different result than the regular season. There is no, we're not winning. Like, we're already down by 21 points. We're packing in for the week. This is our chance to win a Super Bowl. Do you want it or not? So that could be a very different result when you play 4 quarters of total football.
Absolutely. And see, the important thing for the Cowboys here too, you get this win, you're now tied with the Eagles at 10-3 overall. If you end up winning that division, you don't have to face the 49ers till the NFC Championship game. Do you know how many Cowboys fans have not seen an NFC Championship game in their lifetime? I mean, it's been since 95 or 96? I was barely walking around probably watching it when I was 2 or 3 years old, whatever it was. That's still big. So if you can get there, maybe someone else knocks off the 49ers and you just have to beat, I don't know, like the Seahawks on your way, or maybe the Eagles again, which you've already shown, and you have a home game to do it. So it means a lot that they were able to perform well. Dak's the front runner for the MVP by far, in my opinion. Brock Purdy should be behind him. Tyreek Hill, right up there with them, like we talked about last week. But he got injured. We're gonna talk about that game right now. So let's hop into that one. Two Monday night games, which I don't really like being on the same time. So I don't know about you. Well, you can answer. Yeah, it's two different. Do 5:30 and 8:30 game or something. But
Right.
Tyreek Hill gets hurt early in the game. It was kind of a horse collar, hip drop tackle combination. Not saying it was dirty. I don't really like to believe things are dirty or intentionally. He gets hobbled. Didn't really play like a ton the rest of the game. They kind of put him in the game and kind of took him out at different times. It was really weird with the usage of him. The Dolphins still had this game pretty much wrapped up. They had a 14-point lead with like 3 minutes. The first time in NFL history a team has blown a 14-point lead with under 3 minutes to go in a game. They let the Titans score a touchdown. The Titans get the 2-point conversion. As you know, the teams are down 14. They always go for the 2-point conversion when they're down, and when they get the touchdown to go down 6 instead of 7 because of analytics that I do not understand. But they then get the ball, and it's the Titans have 3 timeouts, and they use all 3 of them before the 2-minute warning because Mike McDaniel of all people decides to get conservative with the play calling, and they get stopped. They run the ball, and they get stopped really quickly instead of using Tua and using the passing game. The Titans get the stop. They go down the field. Will Levis gets a touchdown pass. They win the game. Very, very big game for Will Levis. I think if you're the Titans, you have to be excited about that. And the Dolphins, the concerns about not beating good teams is there, but also now you had this game won. You have to finish it. We know you had tons of offensive line injuries. We know Tyreek was injured too. Up by 14 with professionals on the field, there's no excuse for blowing that one.
No, there isn't. And sure, there are injuries, and again, injuries are part of the game, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I think Mike McDaniel will learn something from this game. Is that's don't shy away from who you are, and I think that's a big thing the Dolphins have always kind of been, especially since he's gotten there. That's kind of been the culture is don't shy away from what you want to do, what your players want to do. Like don't just do things because they're unconventional, but don't just do something because it's conventional either. I mean, it's a team that likes to score big plays. It's a team that likes to push the ball downfield. They've never shown signs of playing conservative in a game, even though they're up by a lot. They've never shown that. And this game, I think he was worried about Tyreek. He was worried about the offensive line. He went, let's mail it in and let's go home. And the reality is, it's the NFL, and that's just not who your team is. Um, Obviously, we'd all be saying the same thing if Tua had managed to throw an interception or something. They threw the ball and something happened at the end of the game. Obviously, there'd be criticism there too, but I think Mike McDaniel will take a valuable lesson home from this, and that's just be you. Just do what you do best. Don't just rely on, there's always Tyreek talk, or there's always this or that. Like, this team has been built and has been dominant, not just because Tyreek's there. It's because of the offense and the mentality that he's instilled. So let your team do that. Let your team play hard, and just don't let up. Like, just believe. Don't get discouraged, and don't start second guessing what you've been doing and what has led you to success so far this season. You've got to continue to commit to that. You've got to be able to do something great in the NFL. That's how you make it to a Super Bowl. It's not because you're okay at a lot of things. It's because you're great at something. That's how usually the team who wins the Super Bowl is. They're great at something. They don't even have to have the best defense. They don't even have to have the best of this. Most of the time, it's someone who's supremely talented on one side of the ball and at one specific position usually at times. Most of the time, that's quarterback. But the reality is Mike McDaniels and this Dolphins team is still going to make the playoffs. They need to figure out over the next couple weeks, they need to, God, that offensive line is hurt. And that sucks. I mean, offensive linemen, most downplayed thing in football at every level. And it shows every year in the NFL this year, especially now, how important that stuff is. If you don't have offensive linemen, you have flag football. That's the reality. That's what if you don't have that offensive line play and it's overlooked and it's just assumed, it's not the sport it is. Like, if you say and you sit there and watch flag football and go, I think I like this just as much as the NFL, we're going to have some serious talks. But it's about that line play. It's about having to, like, see a team, beat a defensive line back. It's why the Cowboys are so good. It's why the Eagles are so good. It's why the 49ers are so good. Because their offensive lines are actually good and almost dominant in ways at times. When you have that, that's honestly almost as important as the quarterback. A lot of great coaches have said it overall. You need a quarterback, you need people who can protect your quarterback, and you need someone who can get to the other team's quarterback. That's what you need to be a successful NFL team. And it seems like most people have just kind of let the offensive line just fall to shambles. I think the talent pool is, I don't think the talent pool is less. I just think the development isn't there. I think NFL coaches and staffs can't focus on player development too much because there's such a, I am basically need to win or I'm going to get fired at all times. Um, all the assistant coaches are always trying to basically network and get to a better job somewhere. Not that that didn't happen at times, but I mean, especially offensive line coaches, there was a time where offensive line coaches were the same guy for 15 years. I guess that was just what they did. It didn't matter what the head coach's record was or anything like that. I mean, like this guy is an offensive lineman coach. It's not necessarily coaching politics. This guy develops linemen. That's what he does. It's like the mountains of the earth, man. Like they're not moving anywhere. It's just a slow grading process. Sure, it's not a fun position, but it's the most. It's just almost as important as quarterback, and it's one of the more difficult positions to play in the game of football. It really is. Quarterback's the hardest. Being on the offensive line is the second hardest thing because there are just so many things you got to equate for. It's something that casual fans will never see because there's not that much to it. There is about 20 seconds. You hear all those calls. You don't just hear the quarterback. There's people identifying things, people making transitions, and basically you have to stop people like Marco Parsons and all the great defensive players in the NFL from literally running directly at you and trying to sack a quarterback, or you basically having to get off the ball and just move people out of the spots to open up holes for a running back. That is what your job is. You literally have to either take the punishment of the defense or you have to literally move these insane athletes and advance the ball. So that's my offensive line ramp. Dolphins, they're going to make the playoffs. They need to beat a good team. Love of God. I have confidence in them. It scares the hell out of me, just like it does anyone else who's been rooting for the Dolphins. We like two and on here, and we need some Tua Jitsu to get them a playoff win.
Absolutely, and you could say, "Hell, well, they beat the Broncos," but like the Broncos weren't good when they beat the Broncos. Like that they scored 70 points. I think they can still beat the Broncos, even now that they are a good above 500 team. But they have to prove it really. I think the last couple weeks of the season here, something they definitely can do heading into the playoffs. And like I said, if you get in the playoffs, if you're an AFC team, if you clinch a spot, I don't care what it is, just wrap your players up in saran wrap. They have the Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills. I think winning any of the last three games of the season could really be good. That's obviously teams who will have above 500 records, at least the Bills, we think so, and could really cement themselves as being like, hey, we can actually match up with these teams. But the offensive line play will be coming into question against those teams as well. The last game of the week, to recap, Cease, we have the Giants beating the Packers 24-22. Jordan Love takes the Packers down the field. They score a touchdown, but they left too much time for Tommy DeVito, the passing paisan, Tommy Cutlets. He goes down the field. Joe Barry surprisingly decides to tell the cornerbacks to play 15 yards off the line of scrimmage on this last drive. Tommy DeVito goes down the field. They get a game-winning field goal kick from none other than Fat Randy Bullock, the man that we have dreaded for so long, but in this gets a storybook ending. Tommy DeVito sees 17 of 21, 158 yards, and one touchdown passing, 71 yards rushing, kept a lot of drives alive by doing that. Had his agent on the sideline with his nice pinstripe suit and hat. His dad and his agent were kissing on the cheek. It was very Italian. They were doing the hand signal, the Italian hand signals. Tommy DeVito is doing as much as an Italian American to provide hope for other Italian Americans like myself. You can see the name since Frank Sinatra. It was a great story, a very fun game. I love the storylines. We love the underdog guy. Went to Syracuse, then transferred to Illinois, was not thought of as an NFL quarterback, and we get all this fun content out of this game from Tommy frickin' DeVito.
I love Tommy DeVito. I mean, I'll tell you this. getting to know all these backups and one just watching some backups win games this year has been a lot of fun. Like to watch people like Jake Browning or Tommy DeVito, these guys who going in this season, everyone was just like either I don't know who that is, or they're like, well, my team decided they didn't want to pay, $8 million to a backup quarterback. So if my quarterback misses more than 4 or 5 games, we're probably screwed. To now they're putting together games, they're throwing for 300 yards, they're getting game winning drives. It's fun. Like there's just been so many years where like the backup quarterback was like 38-year-old veteran. Like that was the guy on everybody's team was just this old ass guy who'd been in the NFL for 15 years. And that's fun because you're like, oh yeah, I remember him. I remember Blaine Gabbert being drafted and doing nothing 10 years ago. But watching these guys that are like 24, 25 years old have just been like developmental prospect guys go out there and just for the love of the game, just I mean, using your legs to extend plays. If you were the starting quarterback on a team, your coach would be like, you need to go down, man. I can't have you get hurt. Now coaches are like, sure, run for 20 yards. Get hit directly in the head. I don't care. You're not going to be here next year because somebody's going to pay you a little more money. So, it's fun. It's fun to watch this when it's dysfunctional like that. It's just backyard football. It's guys just trying to get plays. It's fun to watch because it's kind of what everyone grew up doing. Um, Brian Dable deserves to keep his job because my God, like they're getting wins with anybody back there. You give him a little bit of time, a little bit of development. Imagine what Brian Dable could do with a real quarterback. I mean, we'd had the Bills, so I think that answers its own question there. Um, Brian Dable deserves to be the coach of the Giants. They should stick it out until they can get rid of Danny Dimes with him, no matter what happens, because that man will get the most out of anybody. So good for him. Packers, wildly inconsistent still. Their Joe Barry is the worst when it comes to calling a defense. So, yeah, Packers lose one against a team they should have beat. They need that win to get in the playoffs. So, that's going to be one. If they don't make it, it's 100% going to be what they look at. Number one is that's the game we should have won that we just let just completely drop for no reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the recap for the week. It was a longer one, but a lot of stuff happened this week. It was a week where I didn't do good with my picks or gambling. It was a weird week, and we had to talk about a lot of it. Let's go to our picks for this week, Cease. Week 15, Thursday Night Football, a barn burner. The Chargers versus the Raiders. Raiders favored by 3. We have Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell quarterback matchup here. The over-under is 33.5.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna hit that under, for sure. At this point, this is East. I have nothing in Easton Stick. I don't believe in Aiden O'Connell at this point. Aiden O'Connell has gone from prize backup to meh starter to me. He's graduated from the backups to just be another guy to me.
Yeah.
He meant so much, and now he's just somebody else. I don't even know him now. He started quarterback. He's starting. He thinks he's real cool. He's better than the backups now. But yeah, I think the Raiders win the game, and I'll who. What's the point spread on this?
It is 3 points in favor of the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, give me 3 points. It's a field goal. Knowing what we just experienced last week, it will probably be a push. But you're picking the Raiders. Maybe you do a little cover there with the. I have zero faith in Easton Stick, so give me the Raiders to win and cover.
Yeah, Easton Stick, very notable for being a quarterback on North Dakota State. They obviously run the FCS, or at least they used to run the FCS with winning championships. He would dribble the football on the turf. It's really cool. It's something to watch out in his pregame stuff. It's something he does. But the Chargers were not good with Justin Herbert. I can't imagine they're going to do anything without him. The Raiders should be able to run the ball on that defense. It's been a big problem on the defense for years now. They have not really addressed that. Keenan Allen is questionable for this game, too. I'm going Raiders to win and cover. It might be like winning 10-3 or something, but I think they should be able to run the ball and get some points. Let's move to Saturday games. We have some good sports weekend stuff coming up here. See, there's some bowl games this Saturday. There's NFL games all day. There's some college basketball games. We're getting to the fun parts of the season where the holidays are coming around. Started off with the Minnesota Vikings at our Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 3.5 in this one.
You know what? Give me the Bengals to win and cover. Here's what I believe in. I think Minnesota is coming out of a dome. Nate Mullins is starting now. I think the Bengals defense has gotten better. I think they've really kind of, I mean, they were just hurt a lot in the middle of the season here before Joe Burrow got hurt. Sam Hubbard was out. Trey Henderson was in and out of the lineup because he kept getting hurt in the game every game. Um, and everybody's mostly back now and is playing at a high level. I think they just realized that they have to play well instead of it just being, this is something about this Bengals team is there's a talented roster here. It just I feel like I don't know what it was. It was they just assumed Joe Burrow was there, so they just didn't really attempt as hard. I don't really understand it. Maybe they're just playing with less pressure because they know they don't really have that much to play for at this point, or thought they didn't. You could go on about theories there, but I think they're a team that is used to playing outside. They're going to play at home. It's a short week because it's a Saturday game, and the Vikings just came off a performance where they won 3-0. So Jake Browning, the check down, the screen god, I think can put up more than 3 points. I'm not saying it's going to be a heavy margin. It could be a low scoring game, but there's one thing I know is that Jake Browning and company somehow have gotten points on the board week in and week out. And the Vikings don't have necessarily the best rush defense either to stop Joe Mixon or, the new rookie, Chase Brown, who seems to be getting a lot of burst every time he hits the hole.
Yeah, he hit 22 miles an hour this week on that screen pass. I would have liked to see a little bit more of him in the previous weeks. I know he did get hurt a little bit ago, but we'd like to see more of him. I'm going Bengals to win a cover 2 seats. The Vikings making the change at quarterback. I'm not sure it helps them. This is a team I think is going to run out of steam here at the last couple of weeks. Justin Jefferson comes back. He gets hurt again. Um, just a lot just not going in their favor. Cool little story for the middle of the season when Josh Dobbs had the nice times, but I think the Bengals can win this one if they play anything like they have the last 2 weeks. Now, there's a universe where the defense goes back to being very bad, where Jake Browning shows why he's a backup quarterback, but what we've seen the last 2 weeks, I'm going to trust. I think they should win and cover at home. Next one up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are favored by 2.5.
Man, I will I will take the Colts to winning and cover 2.5. I don't love it. It's a weird game because we just saw the Colts kind of just do nothing for 4 quarters of football almost. So that was a weird. It was a weird game against the Bengals. The Steelers with Mitch Trubisky are weird. You just got to go with the home team here in a dome. That's really my thinking behind it. I trust Gardner Minshew more than Mitch Trubisky as well. Um, and the Steelers defense has not really been stopping people as much as they need to, especially they just let Bailey Zappi and the Patriots score a good amount of points on them. So they've had a little more rest, but ultimately give me the Colts at home.
I'm going Colts as well. Not a big fan of Mitch Trubisky, as we've talked about. Can't throw left. I think the Colts need. I mean, they couldn't stop the screen last week, Cease. I don't know how they recover from that, to be honest, but they should be able to figure things out and stop Mitch Trubisky. It seems like the Steelers' locker room's having some issues. George Pickens is kind of throwing some fits. Najee Harris is saying some things in the media that they don't usually say. It's kind of a weird time. I mean, they have a team that if they had any functioning offense would be in the playoffs, but I think it's going to come to an end here. So Colts win and cover. The Denver Broncos and the Detroit Lions will match up. This one's at home for the Lions, and the Lions are favored by 5 points.
Give me the Lions to win. I'm going to pick the Broncos with the points. It's a dome game, so that should help the Detroit Lions. But I mean, they're just not playing well. If it was a lower spread, I'd pick the Lions. But at 5 points, I mean, it could be a game where the Lions win by field goal, or basically the Broncos need a touchdown to tie it up kind of deal, so they win by 4. Five's just a little too high right now, so I wouldn't pick the spread in this game as much. If you're feeling good about a team, I would take the money line here. But ultimately, I'm picking the Lions at home to win, but I'm going to take the Broncos with that point spread.
Yeah, I'm going Lions to win and cover, but I'm with you. I'm avoiding this game on a point spread basis. It doesn't seem like there's a real winner there. I mean, yes, someone will win, but not on the outset, not like one you're really obvious or anything like that. Denver has their third straight road game here. That's why I'm taking the Lions against the spread. As you said, they're in the dome. They forward two at home this season. I think that should be good. They should be able to cover, but one I would not be going into with much confidence. Let's go to the Sunday game, see. So we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are favored by 3.5.
Um, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win. We're a team. We like picking the Buccaneers. I don't know what your pick's going to be, but some reason Vegas hates the Buccaneers. We like them. Um, I just it more comes down to I don't have supreme confidence in the Packers defense, or necessarily that Jordan Love is going to be continue to be consistent week in and week out, because it wasn't the best game last week. It's a short week. I think Tampa Bay knows could win the NFC South right now, and I just I like him in a close game, even though it's going to be in Green Bay. So give me the Bucks to upset.
Yeah, the Bucks have lost to one team who's under 500 right now, season. That is the Falcons. That's a divisional game. It sometimes happens. Otherwise, they've won the games they should win. I know they're not favored in this one, so it's not technically should win, but I think they're right on the edge of being they should win this game, even though the spread's that way. You're right. I think Vegas, for some reason, has it out. I think this would at least be closer to a pick'em game, to be honest. But I think, Packers on a short week. Joe Barry doesn't have the defensive, alignment that you would like. I think Mike Evans can have a big game because of that. I think Chris Godwin can have a big game because of that. I'm going to take the Buccaneers as well. Give me those points too, especially if it's over 3.5. I think that's a pretty good bet. I think they can, if anything, they might lose by a field goal, and you win your money. The Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. The Falcons are favored by 3 points right now, Cease.
I'm definitely gonna bet that one. I'm just gonna say that right now. Falcons aren't great, but ultimately they've shown that they can at least move the ball and score points over the last couple of weeks. Bijan's getting more involved. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, all getting involved. Panthers defense was good at the beginning of the year, but they definitely haven't done much of note recently. So I'm gonna pick the Falcons to win and cover this one. This might be one where I won't say it because of a certain friend's turn of phrase, but this is a game I would definitely think about picking and putting money on the Falcons here.
Yeah, I'm going Falcons to win and cover. Disaster, as you said, with Carolina. There's almost no one there in charge. Everyone's fired at the end of the year anyway. So like you said with the offense coordinator's wife tweeting that stuff, there's no supervision. It's the substitute teachers in, the school's out for summer, whatever you want to say. Falcons should be able to win this. They're starting to get the ball to their playmakers. I think Desmond Ridder's been okay by his standards the last couple of weeks, so I'll take the Falcons to win and cover. Next game up, we have New York Giants at the New Orleans Saints. Now, this one has gone, the line has moved a little bit. It is now up to Saints favored by 6 points, Cease.
Man, it's in New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
Give me his Saints to win. 6 points with Tommy DeVito, the man. I'm gonna pick the Saints to cover. I don't love it, but I like the Saints at home. They should be better than they are, and basically just relying on Tommy DeVito to keep impressing us and pulling things out against Saints team that's much better at defense than they are at offense. I think that could lead to some more struggles with the Giants moving the ball. So with that said, I think the Saints will be able to put up enough points.
I'm going Saints to win, but I'll take Giants with the points. Again, most disappointing team I can remember in a long, long time based on the talent they have on the roster. Big fan of what Tommy DeVito is doing. We know Saquon Barkley is the key to that team. If they can get him out in space, which I think they can against the Saints defense, I think they can keep it close. I'll say the Saints win by a field goal. Houston Texans at Tennessee Titans, an important AFC South matchup specifically for the Texans here. Titans favored by 2.5. There's definitely some, intrigue whether C.J. Stroud will be playing.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud's not playing. You're picking the Titans to win and cover right now. I think they showed that Mike Vrabel has kept them bought in, which is huge. There's a lot of teams that have just been like, we're screwed anyway. We're out of this. It's time to pack it in. I think Will Levis has showed enough consistently now to say, they can be in this game and they can win it, especially with Nico Collins is out. If CJ Stroud's out, I don't really know what the Texans offense is going to look like. Nothing really good. Um, if CJ Stroud is in, it becomes much more interesting. I think I would still pick the Titans to win it just because it's kind of worrisome with the head injury and the other injuries they've already had to other players. But we pick it as it is right now, so I'm going the Titans to win and cover based off of the concussion protocol and all that. It's hard to come back after 1 week of it. So give me the Titans. You can ask me if CJ Stroud's declared active what I feel like, but I'd still probably pick the Titans money line regardless. And if you give me any points to the Titans this week, I'm probably taking it as a spread as well.
I'm going to take the Texans, and I'll take the points too. I'll take the risk that CJ Stroud plays. He came back from a concussion, I believe, pretty quickly earlier this year. Maybe it wasn't even a concussion, just a hard hit to the head. I think they're going to try. I know it's independent, but I think they're going to try to lean on playing if it's questionable because it is a do or die situation. If they lose this one, 7-7 in this AFC when it's tough. I mean, some of these other results go some other teams' way. Or the Bengals wins or the Colts win, makes things a lot tougher. I also good game for the Titans. I'm having trouble believing that will stay the way they play. Will they keep Derrick Henry in the game? Will they keep on giving him the ball where he scores 2 touchdowns a game? I don't know because the Titans in the past have done some pretty dumb things. So I will take the Texans with the points and trust that he might be back. If I'm wrong because he is still in concussion protocol, that's fine. Next game up, we have the Chicago Bears at the Cleveland Browns. This one has, I think, been a different game than maybe we thought it would be maybe a couple weeks ago. The Browns are favored by 3 points.
Give me the Browns to win and cover. I think Joe Flacco is getting it done, especially at home. I think Justin Fields' that offense is still kind of weird and not necessarily consistent. I think what happens is the Browns play man to man very well as well. And I think they'll put a spy on Justin Fields, and they have enough athleticism and the linebackers and the safeties and guys on that team that I think they'll be able to limit his legs a little more than some teams have. Joe Flacco's put together a decent season, so I'm going to trust the Cleveland Browns and their defense at home. So win and cover.
Same thing you said. Joe Flacco just does enough to, I think, help this team get to where they need to be. This will be the playoffs for them. A guy who I just came out of nowhere, honestly. I mean, we know Joe Flacco, but came out of nowhere, and I don't know what he was doing before. Was he warming up? Was he watching these games? Was he watching tape all year, staying ready? I don't. Maybe back at the barrio with Bert and Ernie. I don't know. So Browns win and cover. Bears, I like their fight, but I don't think they quite have enough to win a bunch of these games on the road. We have the New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 9.5 points. 8.5 points. The last time these two teams played was the Black Friday special.
I did not buy anything on the Black Friday special, so take that, Amazon. But I'm picking the Dolphins to win. I'm going to go with the Dolphins to cover the spread. They should. They beat teams usually that are below 500. So that's my thought process here. It worries me what just happened and transpired. It worries me that Tyreek's health isn't 100%. But I think the Dolphins are going to learn from this game. I think they're going to be mad. I think they've played the Jets once. I think they'll kind of have a little more ability and figure out how they can really beat them. And I just don't see the Jets offense scoring, over 20 points twice. So give me the Dolphins to win and cover.
Yeah, I think Zach Wilson provided the spark. I'm not sure that spark's going to last. It just hasn't in the history of his career. Dolphins win and cover this one. I think a lot of it is the emphasis is going to be on let's win this game to get to 10 wins because with your last 3 games of the schedule we already talked about, Cease, are the Cowboys, Ravens, and the Bills. I mean, good luck getting a win then. So if you want to make sure you lock up a playoff spot and get to 10 wins, which I think 10 wins will definitely get you a playoff spot this year in the AFC, get it done now. Make sure you win. Mike McDaniel learned his lesson. He'll keep the foot on the gas and they'll win the game. Kansas City Chiefs at the New England Patriots. The Chiefs are favored by 9.5 on the road.
Give me the Chiefs to win and cover. I don't love the spread, but I don't think what we saw on Thursday night is going to be something that's going to continue. I think Chiefs have a better defense as well. I think Pat Mahomes is going to be pretty pissed for most of the week. So I think the Kansas City offense is really going to want to come out and start firing. And I just don't think the Patriots, they don't have a prayer in this one, honestly, but I think the Chiefs have their backs. They feel like they have their backs against the wall. I think they feel like they just got embarrassed, and I think they're angry. They're going to come out swinging. So give me the Chiefs to win and cover.
Chiefs to win and cover for me too. This is a perfect get right game. Yes, the Patriots defense is pretty good. They just don't have the firepower to keep up. The Chiefs, I think, will have proper motivation in this game to get things right. They still have a lot in play to get the one seed and everything. If they really focus here, I'll take them to win and cover as well. Sunday evening game, Cease, we have the Washington Commanders at the Los Angeles Rams. Los Angeles Rams favored by 6.5. The Commanders are coming off a bye week, though.
Give me the Rams to win and cover here. I like what the Rams have done. I like how where the offense has trended at, especially with Kyron Williams now. Um, I just I think they will just score too many points for the Commanders to keep up. I think Sam Howell will probably try to keep it close, but ultimately he'll have a turnover or something. The Commanders just have nothing to play for, so the Rams are playing for a potential playoff spot. So I got to go with the Rams at home here to win and cover.
I think so too. Like I said, I think Sean McVay's done a terrific job with this roster. A lot of it is rookies and draft picks they had that were late in the draft class last year to kind of fill out the roster, but they've gotten some good players. I think Matt Stafford's had a pretty good year, honestly, too, and it's just kind of gone unrecognized because they are so up and down as a team. But I think they can win a cover at home. Commanders, Sam Howell has the good moments, but he also has some turnovers as well, and I think the Rams will be able to take advantage of that. San Francisco 49ers at the Arizona Cardinals. This one is a San Francisco 49ers favored by 13.5 points.
Give me the 49ers to win and cover it, whatever. Um, they haven't proven us wrong yet. They don't have to go as far out. It's Arizona. Kyler Murray's there, so that changes things past what it's usually been. But again, I don't really know what the Cardinals are fighting for at this point. The 49ers are still in a dogfight to get the one seed. It's theirs for the taking. They just got to keep winning. So I think they're not going to let their foot off the gas here. So they will win and cover.
Yeah, Kyler Murray being in the lineup kind of makes me think, and the Cardinals being a team that's been so feisty all year makes me think. But I'll go 49ers to win and cover too. They've been on a hot streak of winning games by bigger than the spread, or at least bigger than the spread starts out. I know the Drew Lock injury or Geno Smith injury, where Drew Lock played, changed the spread again, so that changes things. But 49ers, I think, should be able to win and cover. They're playing for a lot more than the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals have already figured out, hey, Kyler Murray is our quarterback next year. We're not going to be in range to take another quarterback. We've won enough games. We've played pretty well. Let's stick with him and get him a wide receiver maybe in the draft. The Dallas Cowboys at the Buffalo Bills sees the Bills are favored by 2.5.
I'm going to go Dallas Cowboys to win and cover. Or win, I guess they get the points here. I like what Buffalo's been doing, but I think that defense for the Cowboys is something special. So I think they're going to get a little more pressure and actually be able to track Josh Allen down more because I know he skates with his legs a lot. The Bills are not a great team by any means. They've put together some better games and more consistency lately. I think the Cowboys are a great team in the NFL this year. I know they're on the road. Buffalo's kind of a harder place to play, especially this time of year. But if you're going to give me points to the Dallas Cowboys at this point with the talent I've seen on the field, I'm going to take it.
I want to as well. The way they're playing, they should be able to win this game. They need to stay focused to get the number one seed or stay in line to get the number one seed. That'd be huge for them. And the Bills, I like what they've shown in the last couple of games, but I'm not going to ignore the fact that they still have lost 3 out of their last 5. They had a 3-1 start, and it has not gone pretty since. So Joe Brady has shown signs of life. I don't know if it's good enough to beat a team like the Cowboys. They do have the Chargers and Patriots on deck after this. Maybe they do bounce back after that and get back on track. Sunday Night Football sees Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Ravens are favored by 3.5 on the road.
Yeah, give me that. I like the Ravens enough. They should be able to win this game. Um, I mean, they have a better offense and defense, and the Jaguars are horribly inconsistent, so I can't trust them at all. And Jacksonville's really not that big a home field advantage. So give me the Ravens to win and cover.
Me too. Just the trust factor is all it is. Is they when they're at their peak, they could win this game outright. They could be right there up with the top seeds in the AFC, but they're not always at their peak. So I'm going to go Ravens to win and cover. Played well. They usually win games. The spread isn't that big of a deal with 3.5. Monday Night Football, an interesting one here, Steve. We have the Seahawks or the Eagles at the Seahawks, and the Eagles are favored by 4 on the road.
Because it's a primetime game on the road, the West Coast stuff doesn't really matter as much. Um, ultimately, I'll go. I'm going to go with the Eagles to win it. I'm going to go with the Seahawks with the points, though. I think the home field advantage is important. I think the Eagles have been through a gauntlet. I think they're beat up. I don't think they're going to let this game lose because they realize that technically via tiebreakers, I believe they win the NFC East. If it goes down and both teams win out, they still beat the Cowboys and win the division, which will be huge because we're talking about being the 2 seed and not playing the 49ers till the NFC Championship game, or having to be a wild card and have pretty much no home playoff games. So, um, yeah, big deal. I think the Eagles will pull it out, but I think it's going to be really close.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles to win and cover. Reason being, I still don't know if Geno Smith's going to play this week. If he does play, is he going to be 100% with that groin injury? How's that going to go? See, Eagles, I mean, they did look terrible against the last two teams that they played, but they were the two best. I think against a team like the Seahawks, maybe they show out. A lot of motivation in this game for both teams. Seahawks need to make a move, but I'll take the Eagles to win and cover just based on the fact that they are the more talented team. All right, Cease, any final thoughts for the week?
No, I mean, I Chiefs are a bunch of babies. I'll say that. And I'm glad that NFL football's on Saturday now. It's that time of year.
Absolutely. Football, wherever you can get it. My turn to remind everyone like and subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a review. Let us know what we're doing great. We'll use that as motivation for future episodes. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.